Welcome back. So let's talk about faults. Faults is any area where there's movement between two rock surfaces that could occur at a break or just at a plate boundary where things are moving. So there are a few different types of faults, and they each kind of give us, in this case, different kind of characteristics to different earthquakes. The first type of fault that we discuss is what's called a normal fault. So I guess this is what normally happens, and it's caused by tensional stress. So when something is being pulled apart, like at a divergent boundary, or if for some reason some plate is being rifted and pulled apart, you get something called a normal fault. That's where kind of this block falls down. Whereas a reverse fault caused by compressional stress, the convergent boundary, creates something called a reverse fault, where this block gets pushed up. Now, there's a special name to this block. The name of this type of block is called the hanging block or the hanging wall. For instance, it's probably best seen here because it has like an overhang to it. See the angle of it? It has this kind of lattice overhang to it. Depending on which direction the hanging wall or the hanging block goes determines the type of fault. So, yeah, we'll talk, I guess, a little bit more about that in class. So this hanging wall, the side that has this overhang, you can see that this side doesn't have an overhang to it. Imagine separating these two blocks. In fact, I can actually kind of do that right now. Let's see here. Okay, imagine separating these two blocks. I could hang from this one because it has this overhang to it, whereas this other one, I can't hang vertically from it. There's no overhang to it. So we have the hanging wall, and the other one is known as the foot wall. So again, tensional stress, if I were to kind of take, so right now, tensional stress, if I kind of pull apart, the hanging wall falls down. The reverse of that, if I push, if I'm compressing together, I'm pushing together, right? And you see that the hanging wall went up, so I'm making it a reverse fault, or I got a reverse fault, so I know it's a compressional stress. And then, excuse me, the third type of fault is a strike-slip fault. In this case, we don't worry about hanging walls, we don't worry about foot walls. There's nothing going up or down. Everything is laterally kind of side to side, towards or away from you. So kind of towards or away from you, known as a strike-slip fault. And that is produced by what's known as a shear stress, kind of this grinding side by side. When it comes to earthquakes, your larger earthquakes are going to be more so due to compressional stress with reverse faults or shear stress, which create strike-slip faults. Normal faults due to tensional stress, there is movement, therefore energy is released, but earthquakes aren't as potent in these areas with these types of faults. Excuse me. So again, kind of really coming back to that hanging wall versus foot wall. Again, you see the hanging wall, the one that kind of has this overhang to it. If it moves up, that can only occur due to compressional stress, making it reverse fault. If the hanging wall, the part that has an overhang, drops down, and that's only due to tensional or extension, something being pulled apart, that creates a normal fault. The name of these different foot wall versus hanging wall actually came from mining. Because when you have movement of rocks, when you have faults, that means, stuff can get in. If you have a crack, mineral-rich water can make its way into that crack, deposit valuable material. A lot of times when miners were or are looking for valuable minerals, for instance gold, they look in areas that have faults because it's in these breaks that this mineral-rich material could seep in, depositing a vein of gold. So what they found is that as they're digging into the mountain or whatever to mine out the gold, they noticed, this part that had the overhang to it. They know that they noticed that the rock type over their head was one type, but the rock type under their feet was a different rock type. So they called this the hanging wall because that's the one they hung their lanterns from. And they called the other type of rock their foot wall because that's where their feet were. Hanging wall, foot wall. Hooray. Before we go, let me give you part of the super secret code. It is the number 2. You got me? The number 2. One more time. The number 2. We're going to pause here. When we come back, we're going to talk about the energy released from these faulted areas. That energy released is known as seismic waves. I'll see you back here in just a second to talk about seismic waves.